All right, everybody, good evening. Welcome to another episode of The Gathering with your host, SRS Paranormal. So tonight, we're going to do a little bit of a different show than we normally do. We're going to talk about our recent trips to Hales Bar Dam. Actually, it was our second trip to Hales Bar. We're also going to talk about Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. And with us tonight, we have a couple of guests. We have Tori and Whitley Starnes. They're good friends of ours. They're also affiliate members of our team. They come out and help us when we have big locations. They also help us when we do public events. They work with us at those. So we're kind of an extension of our base team. So Tori and Whitley, real quick, before we get into talking about Hales Bar and Old South Pittsburgh, how did you guys get interested? I mean, I know the story, but I think our viewers might find it interesting to find out kind of how you guys got interested in paranormal and then how you hooked up with us.
Well, so I guess for both of us, growing up, we always watched those fun, paranormal shows on TV and got really interested and intrigued. And then, recently, of course, our dad works with Matt and Al, and so we found out that they have their group and just really took to it and got super excited about it and got the opportunity to kind of hang out with you guys.
And you guys have investigated with us not only locally here in East Tennessee, but you guys have actually gone to a couple other states outside of here. With us when we've gone on some of our road trips. You've done the Ross Opera House in Kentucky with us. You guys went with us, of course, to Hales Bar in Old South, which we're going to talk about tonight. You guys have also done our home haunt, the Nickerson Sneed, with us. You went to W.A. Stewart House with us, I believe. And where else have you guys been with us? Oh, of course, Tipton Haynes and the Deary Inn, right? Yeah. So you guys have for just kind of getting your feet wet as investigators, you guys have actually got to go to a lot of pretty cool locations. So what's been your, having seen it on TV and then getting the opportunity to come out with a team and investigate, what was your take? What did you feel, was kind of, the difference, or what did you find most exciting about it?
Honestly, just actually getting to feel and experience the stuff yourself. A lot of times you definitely question things on TV, is that played out or is that set up per se or whatever. So it's definitely interesting to kind of get to experience those things on your own and kind of leave with experiences that you don't get through TV, you don't get through other people.
I think we've got
Jared.
All right, go ahead and bring Jared on, and I'll keep talking to those guys, and I'll introduce Jared as well. So hey, Jared, thanks for joining us tonight. I was actually I'll bring everybody up to speed on you, how you kind of got hooked up with us and kind of where you've been with us. But getting back to Tori and Whitley for just a minute. So what I wanted to ask, though, like I said, before we get into the show tonight, what's been probably your favorite experience in all the places you've gone? What has been that for you moment that, hey, yes, there is actually something to the paranormal and this stuff is actually legitimate?
So personally for me, I think the initial one was when we were at Nickerson Sneed for the first time, and we had a personal experience talking with our aunt, with the group as a public event, who had no idea who we were, didn't know anything about us, and we got that that answer on the dowsing rods, and then hearing some voices over the spirit box. That really was okay, there's something there. And not to mention she had just died a couple weeks prior to us going to that. So that was definitely my okay, there is something after death that I'm just not sure about, but this is really intriguing to me.
My personal was Deary Inn, actually. When you were talking, Matt, and I personally was just getting so angry at what you're saying, because what you're saying just didn't feel like the truth per se. And I went home telling them guys, I'm going crazy.
and I think, if I remember correctly, Tori, that was at a public investigation we were doing, and I was actually in Estes, so I really didn't know the context of what was going on, and I had no idea what questions were being asked. Plus, I had a blindfold on, so I actually didn't even know what you were getting angry about until after the fact. So that was kind of validating for me too, because then it was not just the people seeing it, but it was also you reacting to it, and then me having those experiences as well. And also, Tori, getting back to what you talking about, the Nickerson Sneed, I remember that particular evening because I believe I was the one that was doing the dowsing rod sessions.
Yeah.
And I had no idea about your relative that had just passed. I mean, even though I've known Marcus for 25 years and been friends with him, I had no idea that had happened so recently. So I thought that was also another one of those real validating experiences. But for the viewers, Jared has just joined us, and Jared is Michelle's brother. Jared is another one of those guys that comes out with us when we need some extra hands, if we have a really big location or some of those things going on. He lives a little further away. He doesn't live in our immediate area. He lives about 120 miles from us. So we bring Jared out as well. But Jared has been with us to the Anderson Hotel, the Ross Opera House. He went to Hales Bar in Old South. That's why he's on here with us tonight. Where else has Jared been with us? I can't remember, Jared. Where else have you been?
No, in a Nickerson Sneed.
That's right. You've been up to Nickerson Sneed. It's kind of cool. So, Jared, I'll ask you the same question I asked the girls before we get into the program tonight. What was your favorite experience so far in having the opportunities to go to these different locations? What was your favorite experience?
I would say probably, like Tori said, the Nickerson Sneed house that time I went. The whole table turning.
Oh, yeah.
With I think Rhonda was there. And
yeah, you actually came up for one of the spiritualist investigations we were doing, which focuses on the other side of the coin for our viewers that don't know that we do those type of things too. Not only do we do the dowsing rods and the spirit boxes together, we also do table tipping, spirit boards, pendulums, and all those different things. So he's actually referring to that. And I know we've got a little bit of an audio issue, guys, and I don't know where it's coming from. And we've tried to resolve it, but it happens. I don't know if it's a StreamYard issue or not. We have individually worked on all of our settings, and we can't always get it to go away. It comes and goes, and I do apologize for that. So anyway, so Jared, getting back to that. So of all the locations you've been to, what has been? Oh yes, Jared. Also, Al just reminded us. He popped in with a comment that you also your favorite experience in all the locations you've been to.
There's always been a few special, I think, but I know that last we went down to the South Pittsburgh when we were all back in that one bedroom using the Diablo dogs.
Yeah.
That when it seemed like when we put a brand new battery in it, and the battery went dead within 15 minutes, and it seemed like we were getting some kind of interaction from what was it? We thought we was talking to Bubba. Yeah.
Bubba, yep.
And some stuff, was coming. I knew Kevin had the spirit box, and there was some things came through that we sounded like his name, Bubba, coming through, and maybe even his age. It sounded like 7 or 11. And when I asked later, I know that one guy said that they thought he was 6 or 7, I believe.
Yep, I believe he was 7.
Yep. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and he's a spirit that has been documented multiple times, and a lot of times people will say, "Oh, if you're communicating with this child spirit, be careful. It's not necessarily a child." And while there is some truth to that, as you experience and you become experienced investigators, you really learn to know the difference. I mean, you learn to be able to feel the difference in that energy. And where we work with, so many with psychic mediums on our team, and we are also, some of us are also sensitive. We can usually tell when we're dealing with something human or non-human. So now that we kind of introduced everybody and we've talked a little bit about some of these locations that everybody has been to with us and kind of how you guys fill in and help the team out, and you guys are an extension of our Para family. Let's get into talking about the locations themselves. I know for the team, the core members of the team, it was a return to Hales Bar. So I know, Kevin, you and Christina had missed that original trip to Hales Bar. But when we went to Hales Bar, that had been a bucket list that we absolutely. I'm getting horrible feedback, guys. I apologize.
We're working on it.
Let me see if I can adjust. I apologize, everybody. I'm trying to change the setting here to see if it helps any, at least on my end. But anyhow, that was a bucket lister for us. And for those of you, I know we got some viewers watching us from UK, Scotland, and Australia. You guys aren't necessarily maybe familiar with some of these locations that we're talking about. But here in the States, one of the holy grail places for a lot of paranormal teams is the two places we're talking about this evening. Hales Bar Dam is known as the most haunted dam in the entire world. It has been featured on several of the US-based paranormal television shows. Ghost Adventures did an episode there. Kindred Spirits has done an episode there. Nick Roth Tour has been there several times. It is a very, very active location with multiple spirits, and that's because of the dam's history. The dam has a history that was plagued from the get-go. It's even the site of a supposed Indian curse. There is some competing facts with that, but based on the historical research that we had our historian do, and based on talking to the historian that runs that location, I know there's a lot of disturbing sound, guys, and I don't know where it's coming from. I've seen the comments popping up. I apologize. We're trying to sort it out. I'm not really sure where it's coming from. But anyhow, it's.
See if we can.
Let me try one other thing. I'm going to try one other setting on this end. I don't know if it'll help at all. Is that any better on the sound issue?
No.
No, I'm not sure where it's coming from. And I'm sorry, it's somebody was asking, Tammy Stone was asking, where is Bell's Park Dam? It's Hales Bar Dam. It is located in Guild, Tennessee. It's a little bit above Chattanooga. And getting back to its history, it's supposedly the site of an Indian curse. Now, there is, like I said, some competing history about that as to whether or not the curse was true or not. But from what we found, yes, there was a Native American tribe. There was a chief named Chief Dragon Canoe who did supposedly curse the land. We think that, and based on our experiences there, what some people are thinking is demonic in nature is not. It's elemental based, and that was what our psychics picked up on. That's what we also felt in our investigation. So I'll start with Christina. Christina, why don't you talk a little bit about your thoughts as a sensitive, kind of what you felt your initial feelings were, and then I'll compare that to what Rhonda and I had picked up on, especially Rhonda being a psychic, compared to what you had got.
Hang on, we're going to try something. Okay. I didn't get to go to the first one, and getting to go the second time, it was a huge deal. Just walking onto the grounds, you can feel the energy. If anybody follows me on Instagram, they know that investigation was life-changing for me. Connecting with the energies that were there, it was mind-blowing. There's a lot of heaviness there. I wouldn't say malevolent or evil or even dark, but a lot of energy there. We did a little bit of an experiment. I know, Matt, you and I believe it was Josh with you had walked away and were having some interaction, and decided to pull us in, Michelle and I, to see what we were picking up on. And as soon as we hit that spot, we both could feel the energy. It was a very strong female energy.
Yeah, it was very strong.
It really was. And I mean, we do really good on dowsing together. I don't know, our energy clicks together real well. But we connected with, you could tell them about who it was we connected with.
We connected with a woman, an Indian woman, and through some of the questions and also just feeling the energy, we found out she was like the chief's daughter, and that she had her child taken away from her because she did something that the tribe didn't like. So they kind of like banished her and then took her child. And it was very emotional too.
Very. For me, it got to the point almost where so I'm sensitive. I'm not a psychic, but her energy was so strong. It was like I was feeling her emotions, and there was a lot of anger there as well towards men. Mm-hmm. Matt, you can talk about how I reacted when you approached me during all this.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I was trying to sort out the audio issue, so I was not ignoring you guys. I was planning
Yeah.
on jumping in there. I think I figured out something. I made a
Okay.
couple adjustments. I saw Sky Ray is on here tonight watching. She said, Matthew, that's better. So, what are you guys now good? You're not hearing that noise
We're
issue on
good.
any of yours?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we're good.
I think I figured out what was causing that tonight. I am running a slightly different camera setup tonight. And because of that, I was running my mic through the camera. So I think
Mhm.
I was the source of all that feedback. I removed the mic and moved it out of there. So I think that cleared it up. So again, I apologize for the first 15 minutes of the sound issues to everybody. But so let me back up and say this. When we first went, and it will all tie in a second. When we first went to the Hales Bar Dam the first time, when you were not there, Christina,
Mhm.
um, we did like we always do, and we did all of our research, got all those facts together. We always take those facts, we look at a location. Yes, we listen to the stories and some of the claims, and we keep all that stuff, but we go into every location kind of with the um, idea that yes, there is this history, but we're not looking for that. We're looking for the truth of what happens at a location. So it is based on what we feel, what our psychics connect with, and what experiences we can document. And then we cross validate those experiences with the more scientific, methodical equipment that goes along with the actual feelings that we're getting and the communications that are coming from the mediumship side through our psychics or through the sensitives. So it's kind of a unique approach and it's a little bit different. And I know I repeat that a lot on these shows, but we don't always have exactly the same audience watching it each week. But the first time we went, I took Rhonda down like I always do because Rhonda and I are paired up. We work together very well. And that's one thing our team does too. We kind of divide our people up by their strengths and weaknesses and their different energies. So what works well? Christina and Michelle work well. Kevin works a lot with Nikita and Al. So we just kind of have this little routine of how we do things. But so we went down on our psychic walkthrough. So this dam is huge. So you've got 4 or 5 levels on the top above the water line, and then you've got I don't know what probably
It's
half a
fine.
mile to 3/4 of a mile tunnels under that place that go completely underground. Um, and that's where, to me, it seems like a lot of the focus of the activity is down in those tunnels, and it is extremely, extremely terrifying down those tunnels. But if you guys go back on our Facebook, not Paranormal Warehouse, because Paranormal Warehouse hosts this show for us, but if you go to our SRS Paranormal fans on Facebook, you can go back to the dam and see some of the lives and some of the stuff that we actually did that night that we actually did live on our regular Facebook channel. Um, and we were the first team ever to live stream from the tunnels. So that was really awesome. We were the first team in the history of the dam to be able to do a live stream from the tunnels. But getting back to that first trip, so we going through on that psychic walkthrough, and when her and I went down on the tunnels, we witnessed something that we both saw it. And again, I'm not a psychic. I'm like Christina, I'm sensitive. And we saw this thing, and I say thing because it did not look human, peer around the corner and pull back. And as I went to reach for Rhonda to tell her what I saw, she was spinning around and she screamed that she saw the same thing. So it was really cool because we both saw this visual anomaly that to us it presented itself in human. And we'd heard the stories about the demons and all that stuff. But I've got to say, in my 15 years, actually 16 years at this point, of paranormal investigating all over the world, hundreds and hundreds of cases, I've never encountered a demon. I've encountered negatives. I've encountered elementals. I've never encountered a true demon. And I feel blessed for not having encountered that. So getting back to that, we kind of started feeling like there was an elemental presence going on there, which does track with the Native American history. So that investigation, we also had heavy, heavy rain. So a lot of our audio and video was heavily contaminated. So we were unsure if, of a lot of that evidence. So we kind of tossed it out and decided, let's go back to the location and try again. And this time we were able to take all these folks that are here tonight, that are on tonight, plus Al was with us as well. There's a bunch of comments coming on. Girls, I don't know if you're seeing those. If you want to pop in those up, feel free to, Michelle or Christina. I don't want to both be clicking on there and popping comments because then we get into tug of war, and we've done that before. But so anyway, so getting to that. So getting back to that, what Christina was talking about initially. Josh Morris from the Everything Paranormal show was also with us that night. And we went ahead and decided to go and do a dowsing rod session. It was actually kind of Josh's idea. It's like, man, walk over here for a minute. And he didn't tell me. And we like to do that. We don't like to tell each other what we're feeling so that we don't influence the others. And he's like, walk over here for a minute and see what you think. Well, as soon as I walked over there, I was like, whoa. He said, yeah, that's what I thought. He said, let's go ahead and try some things. So we tried an EVP session. We didn't get anything on the burst EVP. Well, I take that back. We did get two responses, but they weren't clear. They were class C at best, but they definitely were not us, and we were the only two over there. So we decided to try dowsing rods. And sure enough, we started getting communication on dowsing rods. We connected with a female spirit. We felt she was Native American. We went down this line of questioning that kind of led us to the same kind of feelings of being disrespected or bringing disrespect was kind of the direction that I think she led us in that session. But what was really awesome, we started to walk back, and I said, hey, Josh, just kind of go along with me when we go over here. I want to do an experiment and see if we can validate this experience on a different level. So I said, Christina, why don't you and Michelle, you guys come with me, and Josh, let's go over here, and you guys try a dowsing rod session. Well, we start taking off through there and said, just tell us what you feel. If you don't feel anything, we won't do one. If you do, we will. So we start taking off across. This is on the first floor of the dam. We start taking off across through there. And when I say taking off, Christina takes off in a sprint. I mean, she like dead runs across the thing. I'm like, whoa, slow down. What are you doing? And she's like, I don't know. I got to go. And she takes off running. Now, I've investigated with Christina for a couple of years now, and I have never seen her have that type of a reaction to something. She was like, I don't know. It was very strange. So
Was for me too.
She was a little reluctant to get on rods at first. And I was like, just go ahead and get on the rods. So she gets on the rods, and sure enough, they start saying, I think it's female, and they start going down to narrowing down the age, got the same age. And we've got all this stuff documented on video and everything. So we have we be able to go back and look at that and see if there's any additional EVPs. We haven't gotten a chance to do all of them yet, so we still have a lot of video to go through because we're still working on the Anderson Hotel from a couple of weeks before. But they were going down the same line of questioning, and that to me was the critical validation, right? Because they're going down the same exact line of questioning without any discussion with us. So they had no idea what questions we asked. They had no idea what we thought we communicated with, and they were absolutely getting the same exact line of questioning. So they made those same questions and right down the line. I mean, almost verbatim the same line of questioning. But then Christina started getting this almost empathic reaction, and I had never seen this in her either. She actually started panicking almost to a sense to where she was getting so much emotion and so much of the emotion flowing through her that I actually walked over to her. And I knew what was going to happen when I did. And I just normally would just reach out and say, hey, calm down or whatever. But I knew as soon as I did that, she was going to freak out. And I knew why, because to me, the energy I was feeling from her was fear, and not like afraid of ghosts. I'm talking a personal trauma fear. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I barely put my hand out, you about swung at me. I mean, I really thought for a minute you were going to hit me. And I was like, whoa, hey, just relax.
It was a fight or flight instinct, though. It just,
yes,
that's exactly what it was. It wasn't my emotions that I was feeling. But it was fear, and it was just so overwhelming. And fear and anger, it's kind of a survivalist kind of, like I said, fight or flight. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was definitely the response. But what was so cool about that experience also was another thing. We have tried for, I'd say, a better part of a year to get Michelle to be able to use rods at all, because and I don't want guys to think that that's all we do. We don't just do rods. We're going to get Kevin in here in a few minutes to talk about some ITC stuff, and we'll get the girls talk about some of the other stuff down there, Tori and Whitley and Jared, some of the other stuff that they got to experience with us too. But this particular story that we're telling here has to do directly with rods. And we have tried to get Michelle. And those of you that don't use dowsing rods or think, oh yeah, people can manipulate them. First off, if you try to manipulate rods, it would very, very clearly show. They're on a swivel, and you would be able to see if somebody was manipulating them. We believe that it's because the energy passes through you. You're allowing that energy to physically pass through you to make the communication, and that's why it works. So Michelle is not been very open to that type of communication, but she's starting to open up more. So I, for some reason, said, "Hey, why don't you try rods?" And Michelle was like, "Why?" And I was like, "I don't know. Christina can't do it. Try rods."
Yeah.
And man, it unloaded. I mean, she just started getting the communication, and it took it even further. So it took what I had done with Josh to another level, which was really, I thought, really cool. So we went down and got a bunch of other information. So of course we documented all those experiences and all the information. And when we met with Stephen Ware, the guy that runs the paranormal tours down there from Hales Bar Investigations. He validated the Indian story, and it was a story that's not very well publicized, but it was about the chief and his wife and the tribe actually deciding that she needed to be, for lack of better words, killed for bringing disgrace to the Cherokee Nation. So we had that incredible validation. Not only by two different groups of people getting the exact same responses without communicating with each other, but we also got that validation from a historical aspect. So anytime we can do that, it's a total home run for us, and it was just an incredible experience. We had a couple of other good sessions. We did have another on rods that evening. We had a gentleman come through that died in a boating accident. I was actually on the rods and was getting that information. And what was cool about that one was, no, I was not on rods. I'm sorry. I was the control. Al was on the rods, and he was in Estes at the same time. That's a method we've perfected. It was actually designed by Kevin King up there on the right. It's where you put somebody in Estes, and for our spirit boxes, there are no antennas in them. They're strictly white noise generators, so they're really not even spirit boxes anymore because it's all they are is static generators. And you have the dowsing rods, so you're controlling the rods, and you can't hear any of the questions being asked. So again, if you were trying to somehow trick or manipulate the rods, it would be ineffective because you can't hear what's being said because we use actual true isolation headphones when we do this experiment. So I was asking the questions, but I was also connecting, and as a sensitive sometimes, again, not psychic, but as a sensitive, I can sometimes connect a little bit, and I was connecting with this gentleman who was adamant about not being at peace and adamant about being in a boating accident, but it didn't make sense. So again, we documented all the information. When we met back with the historian, said, "Hey, what's the deal? Did this, happen? Was there this boating accident?" He's like, "Actually, yes, there was. It happened it was in the 70s or 80s. I can't remember now. And this is what happened. The guy did capsize in the boat. His body was never recovered." So again, that was a second incredible validating experience that we had that night. So I guess with that being said, Kevin, why don't we'll bring you in. You talk a little bit about how we also use, ITC with this and how we do our ITC a little bit maybe different than some teams.
Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go to the dam either time, so I've missed it twice. But just in general, that's probably my favorite to do. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. So I enjoy trying to connect through either just general spirit box or trying to go through this Estes experiment. So we've done a few different versions of it. The interesting thing is when you don't have your senses, really, you're blindfolded, you've got earphones on that you can't hear. You're really you become in a zone, and you're definitely not hearing what's going on around you, and it becomes where the droning sound that you get from the ITC device that's coming through the headphones just kind of really takes you to a different place sometimes, especially if you're in a very active place that you're getting on. We've found though some places don't pick up at all. I mean, there's been very quiet experiences at places that we thought would be for sure home runs with ITC and things like that. For instance, well, I mean, we've been several places. One of them is Brushy Mountain. We didn't get anything really there. And we've been there a few times, and it seems like it's very, the spirits, for whatever reason. And sometimes, I think we kind of have a feeling that we almost train spirits to talk the way they do. So, in some places, when you go in and maybe the first time you don't get interaction, maybe the second, but eventually you may start getting some interaction. So we try a lot of different things, and that's why we use the dowsing rods, we use the ITC, we use EVP, anything that we can to try to connect with the environment. And a lot of it's just experimentation. But that's what I think validates it even more, is not every place you're going to get, voices come through the box. Not every place you're going to get EVPs. Not every place. It's so unpredictable. So, when we go into those experiments using, the isolation part too, I think it really uses the person, just like the dowsing rods do, to connect with the spirits and the environment. And when you hear something through it and you're not aware of any conversation that's going around you and it's relevant, that's really a special experience.
And what I kind of
that's why,
like I said, we work on both sides of this coin. We have psychics and mediums as well, and they're part of our team, and they investigate with us. I think for somebody that's not a medium, that doesn't channel spirits, when you get into Estes, just like you said, Kevin, when you get your senses and you have that sensory deprivation happening, and you start getting lost in that drone and you get in that trance-like state, I do believe that you are almost channeling in a sense, because we've actually documented that as well. We had a good friend of ours with us at Wildwood. There was a big bathtub. You'll remember this, Kevin. We had that big bathtub in the basement. When she got down in the tub and went into Estes, her whole body language, after about 15 minutes in that environment, her body language changed, her voice changed. She didn't remember doing any of that. And that's another experience that I've found in doing Estes. There's times we come out of Estes, I literally don't remember some of the things that I've said, which also is why I kind of believe that it's a form of channeling for those of us that don't normally, do that like mediums actually do. So yeah, I think that's the other great thing about having so many different tools in your toolbox. When something's not working, being able to have the experience and the people that are experienced in these different arenas and say, hey, let's try this. We do seances, and sometimes that's great and sometimes that doesn't work. So every location is different. Every experience is different. And I want to touch on Brushy Mountain for our audience that may not be familiar with it. It was called the End of the Line, is what it was referred to as. It's a prison here in Tennessee. It's another one of those infamously haunted locations. There's been over 2,000 deaths on that property. James Earl Ray, the guy that assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King, was actually housed there for a while. There was several prison riots that resulted in violent deaths. At one time, it was actually a coal mine called the Frozen Head Coal Mine, and they literally would take the prisoners. They had double occupancy. The prison was allowed. They would take them up into the mountain to mine coal. They had a quota. If they didn't meet the quota, they were brutally beaten. And then that shift that was in the cells was then put out in the mine, and those were put back in. So you can imagine the amount of horror and trauma that had happened at that location in its history since I believe it was 1896 when it was originally built. So to Kevin's point, a place that's had that much tragedy, that much energy deposited, to not get any spirit box communication, to me further validates the spirit box. And again, like I said, we modify ours. We don't, we don't keep radio antennas in ours. So we subscribe more to the white noise theory, and we're actually getting ready to try a new device from J.W. Prather from IDC Devices. He has devices that are used on Ghost Adventures. He was actually on our show a few weeks ago. He also does devices for haunted towns and a couple of the other shows. He's a really interesting fellow. He's a big ITC guy. We'll talk more about that when we get that device. And he is going to come back on the show in October. I will mention that, where we're going to do an experiment. We're going to go to our home haunt, the Nickerson Sneed, and we're going to use the new device that we're getting from him. And we're going to ask questions of the spirit realm at our location. He's going to duplicate that with a device in where he lives in New England, and we're going to see if we can get answers on both sides using the same types of devices, asking the same types of questions, and we're going to do it live for you here on Paranormal Warehouse. So I think that's going to be a really cool show, and I think everybody will enjoy that. But yeah, so I think that kind of sums up kind of how we tie all those things together. So let me see, Tori and Whitley, I know you guys went up to, getting back to the dam, you guys went up on the second floor, and there was a story about a woman that was, I guess, was raped and killed there. And you guys had a communication there. And when myself and Jared tried to go and join you guys during that session, you guys pretty much felt like we needed to leave. So you want to talk a little bit about that experience?
So I feel like that was kind of me personally, I guess. When we did our original walkthrough, I told her, I was like, I want to go back upstairs. Like, I feel like I personally have this connection with Emily, like the receptionist that was there, secretary, I think. I said, so I personally, that's where I want to go investigate. So we went up there, and we originally went into the room where it said that he informed us that she was originally murdered in. And I just, I was like, this isn't it. We need to go back into the office. So we go back into the office, and I personally felt like I could feel her in the corner. I think we had done some dowsing rods.
Yeah.
And she had pointed that she was in the corner with us. And at the time, it was just me and Tori. And so we were trying to get Jared to bring us the spirit box, and we couldn't find him. So then that's when Matt, you and was Al?
Josh.
No, Josh got, yeah. You and Josh had came up there with us. And I immediately start, I don't know, not necessarily angry, but definitely more of like an anxiety and a nervousness that you guys were there. And then you guys start talking and try to talk to her and interact with her. And I kind of get this very like choked up feeling, like I can't really breathe. My throat feels like it's starting to kind of close up. And I kind of had kept that to myself until we got downstairs and we're later discussing it. And I think I had told you, Matt, I was like, I don't think I like the fact that you guys are in here. I think if it's okay, you guys need to leave. And as soon as you guys left, it's like I was instantly better. And then I went down there and talked about it with you, Matt, and you had told me how she died and stuff. And I think that was what resonated with me and stuck with me from this trip, was that shared experience with Emily. I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all her.
Yeah, and I saw a comment pop up. I'll address that real quick. Is there a link to the tunnels? No, there is not a constant link to the tunnels. However, we just put up the Facebook link to Hales Bar, to their investigative team side, where you can see whoever is there. They will post any evidence that is left by other teams. They'll also sometimes post live links and so on and so forth for that. But getting back to what you were talking about, Whitley, I think that's already something that I think is really great about both of you. You're already tapping into those instincts, and we have thousands and thousands of dollars of the greatest, latest gadgets. That's all well and good, but as a paranormal researcher, you are the most valuable tool that is in that environment. What you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're experiencing, 9 times out of 10 is the most important piece of data. Now, we need the meters and things to validate that, but what I mean by that is your instincts to say, hey, I don't feel like men are welcome in this environment, was spot on. Had we stayed, that communication may have ended and you may not have gotten anything else. Now, the communication may fall off anyway, because we all know it kind of comes in waves, and we always joke that it's not, it's not a carnival ride. You can't make it sustained and happen. It kind of falls off when it falls off, and it does come in waves. But that is spot on, and I think that's something you guys are already developing as researchers, and I'm excited to see how that serves you guys moving forward. Because that's a really important thing, and I know the seasoned vets up here will tell you that that's right on. I mean, don't you guys agree?
Yeah, Kevin, you've always said that the best piece of equipment you've got is yourself. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you've got to be open to it and be able to connect with whatever the environment is. And sometimes I find myself almost putting up such a barrier. It takes me a little while to get going and connecting in some places. And I don't know that it's out of fear. It's just sometimes it's out of protection. I feel like I have to put up some sort of barrier so something doesn't, connect too deeply when we are doing some of these experiments. And so, I think that's something that you just learn over time is that if you're connecting and you know it, and and it comes through whatever device you're holding, whether it's rods or ITC or, somehow you're connecting with the environment and whatever's going on there around you. So it's good that you all have already, you already feel that, that, and you're going to, continue to develop as we all do going through these places. Everything's a new experience. No matter if you've been 20 times, it's every time's new.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's well said, and I think that's really good advice. So, Jared, before we move on real quick to Old South Pittsburgh, and really Hales Bar, we had, I think, some of the most validating experiences. I mean, Old South Pittsburgh was good, but I think we were so drained from the experiences at Hales Bar because we did them back to back. I mean, we did one investigation. We were 8 hours on that location that night, literally got like 2 hours of sleep, 3 hours of sleep, got up, got stuff together, had to be there. We got to go back and get some more footage from daytime footage at Hales Bar, and then we were back over at Old South, and we were at Old South, for that night for 6 or 7 hours. So there was like no downtime, and it was so emotionally draining the night before. I think that kind of hindered us, to be honest, a little bit at Old South Pittsburgh. But Jared, at the dam, did you have any experiences that you wanted to touch on, or anything you witnessed? Maybe somebody else had an experience that you might want to talk about. And if you don't, that's fine.
Oh no, yeah, I think it was when you were we was upstairs where you were communicating with the guy that drowned. Uh, I had the SLS camera kind of walking around, scanning around, and I picked up right in the corner like an anomaly of a figure. It looked like a person that probably came. I saw it for maybe 5-6
Oh, that's
seconds,
cool.
then it
I
went
didn't even
away.
realize you had picked up anything on you. So, like I said, I've not had a chance, and none of us have had a chance to go back and really go through all that footage yet. We're way behind, and we're actually leaving out again this next weekend. We'll be in Indiana for Randolph County Infirmary and Stone Mansion. So we'll be even further behind. So the great thing is winter's getting ready to come, so we can buckle down and get these all put together and out there. But yeah, Jared, I think that was cool. I didn't know that you'd had a SLS interaction as well. All right, so that kind of sums up, Hales Bar. The last thing I want to say on Hales Bar, we did also have validation of that unhuman entity. It is not a good idea to communicate with non-human entities. That is something, I don't care how experienced you are, I don't care how many thousands of investigations you've done, that is a dangerous thing, and it is
Yes.
something you need to be very careful with. But sometimes you make decisions that you think is relevant, and there were some other steps that we had taken prior to that involved Native American rituals and offerings that helped prepare us for what we were going to possibly face when we went to Hales Bar again. So we did. But Sky said something there. What plans do you have for future investigation? Actually, that's what I was just talking about. We're headed to Indiana to go to Randolph County Infirmary and Stone Mansion. Yeah, we're going to try. I don't know. Just saw Diana said, will it be live? We're going to try to go live on our Facebook, SRS Paranormal Fans. We will try to do some lives from there. It will all depend on internet connection. I don't know what the status is. I do know both locations have power, so maybe we'll be able to do some lives with it. But the last thing I was going to say on Hales Bar, Hales Bar was an incredible location. I really enjoyed going back, and the fact that we got validation of that non-human entity, and I think we shed some light onto the fact that not everything that's negative is demonic, and sometimes going down that demonic road actually blocks you from really understanding what's truly happening at a location. And I'm not discrediting other teams, and please don't take it that way. I'm just saying you got to weed through all the facts and make your best determination. At the end of the day, we don't know what we're communicating with. We know we have valid communication, but we don't know what. Where do you want to go investigate that you haven't had the opportunity yet?
Myrtle's Plantation.
Myrtle's Plantation, absolutely. God, that list is long. McRaven Manor, Waverly Hills, all three of those come to mind. Alcatraz, which some of us have been to Alcatraz in St. Augustine. Not all of us. Some of them up there have. A little jelly, I guess, but anyways, so real quick, I'll move on to Old South Pittsburgh. And Old South Pittsburgh is another one of those notorious locations. It's been featured on numerous paranormal shows. It's a very active location. It's got one of those long, crazy histories as a community hospital. A lot of tragedy, a lot of death as well. I had one really cool experience there that I got to share with Tori. And I think we might have discovered that some of the audio issue might be coming from them. So when she comes back on, it may get staticky again.
Yeah, sorry.
But anyhow, so when Tori comes back on here, I'll let her talk about it. But basically, I was going to talk about the doctor's lounge, and we felt like something was coming, and we had multiple pieces of equipment out. We had an EDI up, we had the laser grid up, the GS2 laser. We had dowsing rods going, we had EVP work going, and we were actually starting to get multiple hits on multiple devices. And we felt the palpable temperature drop, which we documented on the EDI. We also documented a change in humidity, pressure. I mean, all these things changed. The entire environment changed, and it was incredible. And we started getting this interaction. So, Tori, you want to talk a little bit about what happened to you at Old South Pittsburgh during that? Because I thought it was really cool that we both shared the same experience.
Yes. So, we got into that conference room, or like the doctor's lunch area, and immediately, after we set the grid up, you noticed that cold spot, and walked over, felt it, and we started the dowsing rod session soon after that. And I remember Al asking, are you a doctor? And immediately the response was yes, and it took off from there. Like, we asked if it was a doctor there, found out it was no. They were actually visiting somebody in that said hospital. And found out he had actually had a stroke. Remember you talking about you were feeling some pains in your head at the time, and Al and I were trying to, gather around what's happening to him. And in the same turn, like we found out, like I said, he was a doctor. He had went to visit his actual wife was in the hospital. And I remember asking if he was stuck there, and he said yes, that he was, but it wasn't as in like he didn't want to be there. Like I asked if he was taking care of everyone who had passed on patient wise, and he said yes, and that he loved his job. And we proceeded to move forward with more questions. And I remember Matt asking if he could if the spirit was okay to hand me the dowsing rod so I could talk to him. And like immediately it was no, like there was no second question about it. And then it turned to, okay, well, if I can't have the dowsing rods, will you show Tori what you're showing me? Matt's like, I see all this, but I don't want to just tell you. I want you to figure it out. So immediately, as soon as he asked that, and the dowsing rods crossed and said yes, I just remember dropping my shoulders and closing my eyes. I'm like, okay, I want to see what he sees. So soon as that happened, the immediate next question was your wife in like a nursing home or an assisted living? And the answer was yes.
Yep. And
I next asked if a nurse had killed her, and he said no. And then I asked if a doctor had killed her, and it said yes. Immediately, you can kind of hear my voice now probably, I immediately broke down. Like I was so upset, and I was angry at the same time at the fact that I felt like he was upset. So we progressed on, and I asked if he even got to say goodbye to her, and he said no. So, like I know Michelle, as a girl's pro, like, oh my gosh, it's horrible, and I couldn't control myself in crying. Like I got mad. I asked if he got justice for what happened, if the doctor got justice for killing her, and he said no, and stuff. And it was definitely an eye-opening experience for me, feeling things that I didn't think could really happen, I guess, just
Right.
asking questions. You don't really feel like you get too in depth, but that to me was an experience all its own. Like I walked out of there after we got done, almost not being able to walk. Like my legs felt so heavy. I felt so drained. Like I felt like somebody was going to have to carry carry me back down the hall, you know? And that was definitely probably one of my favorite experiences that whole entire weekend, being able to experience something like that and having, you know, Christina, you and Michelle and our dad validate some of that same information with us. That was truly an eye-opening experience.
And I think what was so awesome about that experience, and the question was from Tammy Stone, was Tori and Whitley any intuitive or empaths in you? I would say from my experience having worked with you guys now on multiple places, yes, I think that you both have gifts and you just don't know it yet, and that you will grow into those the more you do this. And we've talked a lot about that. Tori and I have talked quite a bit about that. But I think what was so cool about that whole experience was not only was I feeling those things and Tori feeling those things, and then I didn't tell her what I was feeling, and then she felt the same things, but we had meter hits that validated it. I mean, we documented a full 4-degree, actually 5-degree temperature drop in the middle of summer in a place with no air conditioning, hotter than Hades. I mean, we were pouring with sweat. It was like, I think it was like 90 degrees in the place. And it actually dropped a full 5 degrees in that room with us. And it was a tiny room. And if anything, it should have absolutely been going up. And it didn't. To the point we were actually getting goosebumps because of the energy so close to us. And again, we've documented all of this. So to have that not only secondary but tertiary validation, you just can't beat it. I mean, that's when you know you've absolutely got onto something that is really incredible. And I want to also point out for Tori and Whitley and Marcus, they've been on several investigations with us where nothing happened, right? I mean, you guys had several trips where you kind of felt like maybe y'all were bad luck. Remember that conversation?
Yeah. There were a few times that I was at this point of this trip, I was like, nothing happens, I quit. I'm not doing this again. I just watch from the sidelines and just, you know, root them on, and I'll watch from the television. Like, it was so disheartening. And I think both of us were so passionate about watching these and watching you guys. Once we found out everything, I was like, I really want to be a part of this. And then it was just like, what the heck, you know?
Well, I think too, her and my dad got to go on one without me, like the very first one I didn't get to go on. And so I think you guys had a couple of things happen on that one. And so the first one I get to go on, I was like, I maybe it's just me. I'm going.
And there's Marcus, that's their dad. He's the one who also goes out with us that I work with the fire department. But Jared, real quick, you know, we've got about like 8 minutes left. But Jared, so you had a couple of times you came out with us that almost nothing really happened either. So at least these last 2 times, Ross Opera House and then these 2, you actually had some experiences that you got to witness, right?
Oh yeah. There was some places, like you said, that I didn't. You know, things were slow, didn't experience much, but I believe this time too, you know, I think Whitley and Kevin, you know, we kind of confirmed some of the same stuff, didn't we? Remember the doctor's wife, when we went down, it seemed like the energy was kind of dissipating though. But we went, you know, when we went in the conference room later that night, but yeah, it was there was some interesting, and like I said, we were trying to we thought we was communicating.
Yeah, that's a cool interaction. I haven't, like I said, I haven't gone back and watched any of that footage yet, but I'm hoping we got some good footage of that interaction, because that's one of the claims there about Bubba and about the interaction. So I want to see if anything we got matches up to the claims, because that would be really cool. Kevin, anything you want to add about Old South? I mean, that's the one you got to go with us on this one. And Kevin is a regular member of our team, but his work schedule is so insane. He does not always get to come out with us on the road. He tries as much as he can to do the locals and the distance trips, but he's a very, very busy man. So, Kevin, with that said, what about Old South? What was your big experience there?
Yeah, I think it really was more towards the end of the night, almost the last thing we did. We'd had some interesting things happen in different places. And there at the end, we decided to kind of go up and I think crash the party up where Christina and some of the others had gone up, and we just decided to go up there and see what was going on at the very end of the night. And, I think that day was when they found out that they had maybe had the name wrong of this person all along, just that day. And if we actually caught that it was Bubba, what did they think it was before?
Buddy, I believe.
Buddy,
Buddy.
yeah. If it was, if we actually caught that on ITC, and I think we did. I mean, we all thought we heard Bubba that night up in that room, and that would have been really interesting because, like I said, nobody even knew. Even the caretakers there had no idea that the name was wrong until the former nurses, had come by right before us. So
That's right. Yes, they had the group of nurses. I forgot about that. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, if we were able to pick up that name after the fact, which, that would be really cool. So
And I think we even got the word drown on the spirit box.
We did.
Yeah. And wasn't it, gosh, see that I hate that my mind is that bad. I can't even remember. But muddy. That's what I was thinking. That the story was about that child. Was it they had fallen into they had dug up an old gas tank, in the ground, and the kid had fallen in and drowned in the mud, and was just had mud all over him, and had mud in their mouth and lungs, and unfortunately passed away from drowning that way. Just a horrible death. So it seemed very relevant there at the end of the night, that was probably the most exciting thing there that we picked up on for me. So
absolutely.
We also got the word dirt and dirty. So I remember that.
Yeah. So see, again, I mean, I love when we get to have a validation, and we had the opposite experience of Spirit Box. I had Tori and Al with me, and we sat in the second floor nurses lounge area, which is supposed to be a hotspot for EVP and Spirit Box. And I think we spent like an hour, at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half in 2 trips. There was 2 very long sessions that we did, or runs, where it was dry. I mean, we got nothing on dowsing rods. We got nothing on Spirit Box. We got nothing on EVP. It was kind of like, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what else to try other than go somewhere else and try again, which we did, and we got some interactions. But yeah, it's pretty incredible. We're down to about 3 minutes. So anybody got anything that they want to say before we get ready to wrap it up? Not all at once, guys. No? Okay. That's all right. I just want to make sure y'all got a chance to speak. I'm trying to make sure everybody gets on there. But we've had a lot of great interactions from the audience too. So I want to thank the audience for participating and asking the questions. We do try to pop them up on the screen as much as we can, but sometimes they come through so quick. And also sometimes you guys are talking amongst yourselves, so we don't want to jump your conversation up on the screen either. So we got to kind of watch that. But thank you all for continuing to tune in week after week and listen to our stories and what we've got going on. We do try to make the shows different each week. We try to bring you different content so that it's engaging and fun. We've got something in the works for next week. I don't know if it will work out. If not, our lead psychic, Rhonda, will be on doing live readings for sure if the other one doesn't work out. And if it does work out, I think it'll be a really cool show and people will really enjoy it. If not, it will work out in the future, just may not be next week. But please jump over to our Facebook, which is our SRS Paranormal Fans, if you want to follow us, as we are going to be out on the road again this week. We also have some events coming up, small events that we'll be doing, private events that we will be posting some stuff up with at our home haunt, the Nickerson Sneed. It is one of the most active places I've been to date. I'm so thankful that we are blessed enough to be based out of that incredible location. And we're actually going to do a live seance on one of these shows too. That's going to be interesting. We do that in live Spirit Box session. That'll be one of the shows coming up in hopefully in the month of October. We're trying to work out the dates with Rhonda. She owns the place, and we're trying to get that worked out. But anyhow, check that out. Check out our Facebook. It's scrolling along there too. Our website, www.srsparanormal.com. I also have the Hexpo, the Gathering website going across there. The Hexpo is a event we're hosting in April, a one-of-a-kind paranormal event that's going to have some of the major paranormal celebrities from the U.S. horror, psychics, mediums, the whole 9 yards. So anyways, thank you all for being with us tonight. Everybody hang on. When we go off air, we'll say goodbye. But thank you all for joining us this evening. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you next week.